Why Conquest versus Omni Man isn't fair.
Invincible Season 3 has recently concluded, and it brought in a roster of nefarious enemies that wanted to either conquer the Earth, or show the population that Mark Grayson, despite his best efforts, was ultimately culpable for everything that was going wrong worldwide. From the delusional Powerplex voiced by
Bro, Powerplex is such a dumbass. Yo, he's one of those dumb villains that hates on the main hero for no reason. Like, bro, he is literally the reason why his wife and kid died. And yo, he's literally going against the one guy that's actually trying to save his family from episode. I don't know what episode, but it's when Omni Man attacked Chicago. Cause like, bro, he was the one that's holding up the. He was the one that's actually holding up the building and everything. And then he literally saw the footage. And then the footage, yo, he saw the footage. He saw him struggling against Omni Man. He saw him trying to fight back. He was like, nah, bro, I'm still gonna kill the one guy that's actually trying to save the Earth. Yo, what a boss, genuinely. Him and Angstrom.
Breaking Bad's Aaron Paul, to the Invincible variants with different backstories, and of course, the supposed penultimate Viltrumite, the second strongest within the chaotic alien race, Conquest, voiced by none other than The Walking Dead's Jeffrey Dean Morgan, who absolutely killed it with his performance. This veteran, likely one of the oldest Viltrumites in the series, is feared even amongst his fellow planetary murderers, and is
Feared by other Viltrumites. Bro, if you've seen the previous episode, I mean, not the episode, if you've seen the previous video, then bro, you know Conquest literally got bitched by a guy with a robot eye, Creed, in front of the Grand Regent. I mean, the only reason why he acted like that was because, because Thrive would have actually protected him. But bro, that's actually crazy. The craziest all off moment in all of Invincible, by the way.
specifically sent to the deadliest missions a Viltrumite can bear. And in this particular encounter with Mark Grayson, he was allowed to fight as he
Oh, by the way, the video was called "Who Could Kill Alan the Alien." You know, at the end of the video, I'll leave it. I'll leave it at the thing. Like, at the end of the YouTube video, you see the channel, and then you see a playlist, and then you see, yeah, that's what I'll leave it at. The end screen. Yeah, the end screen.
please and lay waste to the Earth, which he could have easily done had Mark and Eve's efforts not stopped them. And one of the particular debates circulating around the Invincible community is who would win in a confrontation between Nolan, Grayson, Omni Man, and of course, Conquest.
Yo, this shit's genuinely gonna be my thumbnail, by the way. Yeah, I'm about to put this. Yo, this is gonna be my thumbnail. Yo, W thumbnail idea, low-key.
I think many of you would likely say that the Elder Warrior stomps out in this competition, especially given by how Cecil refers to the unhinged alien, and by how the official soundtrack of the show refers to him as the second strongest Viltrumite.
Yo, I don't think he's the second strongest Viltrumite anymore. Cause low-key, yo, today's Wednesday, so you know what that means, right? Because earlier in the video, wait, I'm not sure if I said it or not because my PC overheated and then it stopped the recording when I was like almost done finishing the video. But anyways, bro, with this new episode, yo, just go watch it. Just go watch it. Yo, with this new episode, something crazy happened. That's all I gotta say.
But hear me out, because the debate is actually a whole lot more complicated than that. Of course, the show and the comics do have most of the same scaling, but there are some elements that just weren't there or changed to begin with. For example, Thula, the Viltrumite woman with the hair dagger, was not present in that.
Yo, no way. She's not present in the original fight in the comics. Yo, on God, the comics, all they do, they just be adding stuff and that's it. They just be adding extra characters. First, they gender swapped a shrinking race. And then they made him go with Rex. I mean, they made her go with Rex. And then they did the same thing, gender swap with Tech Jacket. His name was Zach. Why is there a Zoe? Knuckles, hold up. Look at this. Knuckles, hold up. Why is there a Zoe? It was Zach. In the comics, apparently Alan and Zoe, Alan and Zach, they were supposed to be friends. And Zoe's supposed to be a minor, by the way. So yo, they can't be friends no more. They gotta change it up. Just like with the comics, Omni Man. No, not Omni Man. Debbie was poorly written, and then she just forgave Omni Man easily. But now in the show, because they made Debbie a different character, they gotta change it up. They gotta change how they do it.
That Viltrumite battle in Season 2. Omni Man that Viltrumite battle in Season 2. Omni Man never fought the Reaniman, and Adam Eve put up literally no fight against.
No way. Yo, I think, bro, at this point, the show was different than the comics. Because I was expecting it for a little bit. Once the Shrinky Ray became a woman, and then they did a whole bunch of stuff. So you told me in the comics she put up no fight. Because I know what happens like after the season. Like I already knew the plot for episode 5. Already knew the plot. Already knew about the Scourge virus. Already knew about all of that. I just like didn't know in detail because I've seen it over a year ago and I only seen some stuff. So I know what's gonna happen like to like other characters and stuff, like the Mark variants. But no way. In the comics, all she did was just get turned into a donut. That's it. She just flew around. I bet all she did was just, bro, she just made useless pink wall, and then extra useless pink wall. She just got turned into an absolute donut. That's actually crazy. Like at least in the show, she actually like did other stuff.
Conquest in the comic, unlike in the show, which I think did it a lot better. So I will go over elements within both mediums to break down who would really win between these two. Spoilers ahead, obviously. First and foremost, let's tackle Cecil's statement about Conquest, who he refers to as probably being the strongest attacker the Earth has seen thus far, which would place him above Omni Man, right?
Nah, but like Omni Man would be holding back though, because he was fighting Mark. Because if he didn't want to, because if Nolan actually wanted to kill Mark, he would have. But he was trying to like convince Mark to work with him to take over the Earth for the Viltrumite Empire.
Well, yes and no. The context here matters a lot, which most people seem to miss. For one, apart from the battle with the amped kaiju called Hail Mary in Season 1, who wasn't even in the comic to begin with.
Bro, no way. The octopus, the kaiju Godzilla thing wasn't in the comics too. Yo, at this point, it's a completely different show. They just have the same characters, but a completely different show. It's like Dragon Ball Heroes and Dragon Ball Super. Like they both have Goku and Vegeta and like Trunks and stuff, but it's just the completely different stuff.
Cecil had never seen Omni Man go all out, and that's not exactly an anti-feat because Conquest would have likely struggled with that monster too, considering the normal one already gave Nolan some work. But was then given Super Juice, had its pain center removed, and had a Rage Amp on top of that. Omni Man even remarks in the show to Debbie that he never needed help from any of the heroes, including the Guardians of the Globe. Within the comic, however, when Cecil refers to Conquest, he says a casual one is probably the strongest guy he's seen so far, which does put Conquest in higher favor, but Omni Man had never gone all out at that point anyways. This statement only really has significance in this show. Also, the second strongest Viltrumite point is not exactly the best piece of evidence that people think it is because it can be interpreted in two ways. As in, is Conquest generally the second strongest Viltrumite in the cosmos, including those that we haven't seen in the show yet like Thrag? Or is he the second strongest space warrior that Mark had faced off against at that point?
Yo, I don't think he can be Space Warrior. Because, there could be like, the universe is vast, and there could be like other stuff. Like, the Ragnars. Like, one of them took Conquest's arm, but at the same time, that was like because of the Scourge virus. So that could be like excused or something, because he still survived. And he got bit in the head with the Scourge virus. That made him weaker, and he still didn't die from that. So if it was with the Scourge virus, then probably. But like, Thrag definitely would win against Omni Man, and he would definitely win against Conquest because first of all, he's the Emperor. Of course, he's gonna be the strongest one. Second of all, bro, Thrag he took all the aura of Conquest. Yo, General Kreegi slapped the shit out of him. Like in my previous video about who could kill Alan the alien. Yo, he absolutely, he violated him like crazy. Because Kreegi slapped Conquest, and the Conquest couldn't do anything about it. Because, Thrag was there. If Thrag was weaker than Conquest, then Thrag wouldn't be able to control Conquest. And also Conquest doesn't care about the Empire. All he wants to do is fight. And also Battle Beast, he fought Thrag for a couple of days. So he would be stronger than this old man that I forgot his name. Oh yeah, Conquest, yeah.
which would surely place him above Thula, Lucan, Vidor, and possibly Casual Anissa in the pecking order. But him being above Omni Man is not inherently true going through just this line of argumentation. Keep in mind that Omni Man had no diff and speed blitz the Guardians within the comic, and much later on in a reboot arc, Omni Man on them even with an early Mark helping them out to the point he had to be disoriented to be defeated. The only thing he struggled with within the comic was the Mystic Dragon, who even Season 3 Mark struggled with and nearly died to as well.
No way in the comics, the Guardians of the Globe, they were that much of a fraud. No way. Because at least in the show, they actually did something. But in the comics, they just got folded. Oh, yeah, I remember too. I saw it. I think I saw it. Like, it was a comparison between the show and the comic or something. To see, like, which one is better or something. But I haven't seen it in over a year, so I kind of forgot about it. But yo, Loki, this dragon, all it does is just show up and does stuff. Like, it's literally just Titan and the dragon. That's all what happens basically. Titan, like, he does his little climb thing or whatever, and then after that, like, he calls it Invincible. Invincible fights the dragon or some other bullshit. And then after that, Mark gets like traumatized, and then he's gonna be talking with Adam and Eve. No, not Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve on the roof of the house, and then after that, after that, it's gonna be filler. Not, I mean, the episode is filler, but it's just gonna be some random ass moment or something, followed by like a 5-second fight, and then half the video is just gonna be, I mean, half the episode is just gonna be one big PNG. That's literally the entire episode.
Nolan even later points out that the main reason he fought the fabled creature for about 10 hours is because he was trying to keep the damage and casualties to a minimum, because remember, that is one of the things he talked about to Mark when he was first starting out was, you want to keep, the damage to a minimum, otherwise a lot of people are gonna die, right? Nolan also remarks that he had to figure out where the body controlling the dragon was, so it wasn't a long battle necessarily because of the difficulty, although I would say that the dragon is definitely one of the strongest enemies in this show as well. And again, Conquest would also struggle with the dragon, so it's not really an anti-feat. Additionally, Omni Man was casually slapping.
Yo, low-key, that dragon should have fought in the Invincible War to actually try to protect his planet, because bro, that old-ass man, like, he knows that if the Viltrumite Empire or Angstrom does whatever they want to the Earth or whatever, and the Earth got ruined, he won't have any more money. And if he does have money, it doesn't matter. The economy is shit. It's like the entire world got decimated. So no one's gonna care about money. So he should have been in the Invincible War, at least trying to do something. I mean, at the same time though, he did. I mean, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. The dragon was definitely. The old man got injured before the Invincible War, so it kind of makes sense that he wouldn't be able to fight. But hypothetically, though, he probably could take out a couple more, especially the weaker ones.
Around his son in their battle and never expressed his full destructive capabilities, like he could easily do like he did to the Flaxons. I will admit though, Conquest is definitely stronger raw power-wise going by his muscle tone, and this is greatly showcased when his blows with Mark cracked the city battleground and filled the sky with shards of glass. However, Conquest only really seems more impressive because, although still casual at that point in the battle, was holding back far less than Omni Man was in their battle. And I mean, that was his son he was fighting against after all. You also have to keep in mind that even though Nolan is an elite amongst the Viltrumites as their rightful king, he's actually more like a high-ranked elite because in the Great Purge and because of the Scourge virus, the Viltrumite ranks dwindled immensely until 0.1% of the population was left, and most, if not all of the ones remaining, would be amongst the strongest. So, 3 of these elite Viltrumites were sent to fight Nolan, and I'd argue that they did incite a tilt factor to gain an upper hand, because one of the soldiers remarks that they killed the Thraxan population to piss him off in order to make it easier for them to defeat him. And yeah, Nolan would still have difficulty handling 3 Viltrumites anyways and wouldn't necessarily win, but I would argue that he still performed pretty well considering that he was concerned with saving the lives of his wife and sons in the encounter. So if you've seen Dragon Ball for example, Zenkai aside, wouldn't you say that future Gohan fought more effectively against the androids when he wasn't concerned with saving the life of Trunks, right? Also, he was still emotionally conflicted from coming to terms with, learning compassion for the lives he affected, and that ultimately died in the encounter. What I'm trying to make clear here is that he was not fighting at full effectiveness here, and although Mark did help somewhat, Nolan is the one who dealt the heavy blows to all three of them, and hard carried in that engagement. If he was alone, he may have also fared better, or would have at least defeated two. There's also a stark contrast between the combat records of Conquest and Nolan. While Conquest is highly feared, Nolan is greatly respected, and that is not for no reason. You see, all respectable Viltrumites can conquer planets and are savage by nature, but only the great—
Yo, this background music. Yo, I know exactly what this background music is. It's that Bruce Faulkner. Yo, it's that Bruce Faulkner. Yo, I heard this in Dragon Ball when I was watching Dragon Ball Z. Because you know, the first 150 episodes, I watched the Japanese music of Dragon Ball Z. And then after that, like after Dragon Ball Z, no, not after Dragon Ball Z, after the 150 episodes, then I started watching in the Bruce Faulkner. Bro, I gotta see the Bruce Faulkner version is way better. But yo, I hear that in the background.
greatest were tasked with the duty to gain supremacy over planets like the Earth by assimilating with the population, and this was because Nolan quickly
W music choice, by the way.
rose high in the ranks only within a couple of years. Conquest even remarks to Mark that Nolan showed so much promise when he was younger, and even other Viltrumites talk and consistently jerk off about—
Bro, look at this hairline. Yo, this Vegeta ass hairline. Yo, this McDonald's hairline. Oh my god, bro. His hairline is pushed all the way to the back of his head. Genuinely, what is actually happening? Yo, this also has the perfect genetics, and yet the hairline is so ass. The hairline is butt. Dude, that's actually crazy. You're the most chopped Viltrumite of all time. The most chopped Viltrumite of all time.
how great he was to the Viltrumite cause, and even General Krieg, who talked Conquest, and who is viewed in a higher light by Thrag, talked about Omni Man's career in the past with great respect. You could argue that Thrag just generally didn't trust Conquest or didn't want him around because of his mentality, despite the Grand Regent's admiration for strength, and he does seem to hold power as the general measure of who is worthy in his eyes. So if he holds General Krieg in high esteem who views Conquest as trash, yet that same general views Omni Man as a respectable entity, really makes you think about who really is stronger. To be fair though, Omni Man did hold great respect for Conquest after his demise, and actually talked positively about his service to the Empire, despite his bloodlust for his son's life. Now, you could argue that one's overall combat record and the wide respect the—
Yo, I think it's because, like, Viltrumites, like, they're obsessed with intelligence. They're obsessed with intelligence and strength. So, let's say that Viltrumite, like, two Viltrumites, they have a power level of 1,000 or something. Just hypothetically speaking. One has the personality of Conquest, and the other one has the personality of Nolan. Bro, the one that has the personality of Nolan will be respected more because he's like more of a smarter fighter. But Conquest, like all he does is just kill stuff. Like that's it. And then also like he literally like in the comics, like Conquest when he no not Conquest. Omni Man in the comics he literally took over planet Thraxa, the Thraxan planet. Because he wanted to like undo his mistake of Earth or something. Instead of just instead of it like being for a different reason in the show. So, and then he took it over, but instead of killing the people and stuff like Conquest would have done, all he did was just become the leader of the planet. And then if he was still like what the Viltrumites did, then he would have just gave him an extra planet basically. But as Conquest, he would have just destroyed the entire thing and just left. He wouldn't even care about that. That's why like Nolan is like respected and stuff, even though Conquest would be stronger.
others have for a character doesn't inherently mean anything when it comes to combat effectiveness or skill. For example, like with Choji—
Yo, bro, I just seen that fight. Yo, Steve Harvey Viltrumite. I just seen Lucas. Steve Harvey. It's literally what if Steve Harvey was a Viltrumite? Yo, this one frame, bro. His face is mad funny, low key.
mean anything when it comes to combat effectiveness or skill. For example, like with Chojiro Sasakibe from Bleach, who although was highly respected and competent, he wasn't exactly in conversation for being amongst the top vice captains in combat. But I'd argue that it actually does correlate in this case because, well, the Viltrumite's mission parameters are usually to kill mofos and destroy everything in their path. Another way I'd explain it is that Conquest is like an S+ rank when it comes to savagery and destructive nature, and although Omni Man is really good as well, he is likely like an S rank. But he is so much more effective and intelligent in other avenues, hence why he was tasked with usurping the Earth. And unlike Conquest, Omni Man usually knows when to lock in before it's too late, and I'd argue that this show actually gives him more anti-feats because he's never really challenged by anything in the comic, apart from the scuffle with the dragon and the Viltrumite invasion of Thraxa before the Viltrumite War. Another way to look at it would be that Conquest would be like the Kid Buu of the Viltrumites, right? He is the deadliest, craziest mofo out there. But in terms of general effectiveness, Omni Man would be a smarter fighter considering that he knew how to counter opponents with different powers, and even other Viltrumites effectively, despite knowing how formidable they can be. Plus, he doesn't troll like Conquest and Kid Buu did, who got overwhelmed when it was too late. Sure, Conquest even casually was slapping around a Mark who wasn't holding back, but even with that rage amp at that point, which was enough to push Conquest to get serious, Mark was still beneath the threshold of power of Nolan, and to further prove this, when Conquest inevitably breaks out of the prison after recovering,
No way Sea Salt thought trapping this old-headed, big-body Viltrumite in a big-ass Rubik's Cube would actually do something. Yo, he literally escaped. Like 1 minute, he was like this, and then the next minute, he regenerated, and then he just left. Yo, bro, they literally just nerfed Sea Salt's intelligence just for the plot. Literally, that's it, just for the plot.
Good job, Cecil. He faces off against Mark after that battle, and although Conquest's appearance does immensely worry Omni Man, Mark still narrowly wins that encounter within an inch of his life. Conquest even says to Nolan beforehand that Mark was almost stronger than him, which infers that Conquest thinks that Omni Man was still stronger than base Season 4 Mark, who would be around if not stronger than his Rage Amp self from Season 3. An encounter that further alludes to this later in the story is when an altercation breaks out between Invincible and Alien the Alien, who had just previously beaten the hell out of Omni Man, where he basically says that if his father had a low chance of beating him, what chance did he have in the fight to begin with? Maybe you could argue that Conquest scales to Rage Amped Viltrumite War Mark, but so would Omni Man. And the only real point that we get confirmation that Mark really does fully compare to or surpass Omni Man straight up is in their arm wrestling match, which happens well after their first engagement with Thrag. A near-death situation in which they would have both gotten some type of power boost given their critical injuries, with Mark likely getting a larger boost than Nolan, and this is because Nolan is more or less at the same level of power for majority of the story until the time skip where he does reach a higher breaking point. Anyways, back to the arm wrestle. Nolan did doubt that Mark could push him considering that he brought up that in their widely well-known feat of them destroying the planet Viltrum, he had to pull Mark towards him, inferring that he was still faster than his son even though this event was post-second Conquest fight, aka what I predict would be post-Season 4 Mark at this point. Omni Man does struggle and is at times even sweating against Mark in the competition, but he only really wins when Mark becomes distracted at Anissa spying on them, who Nolan doesn't even realize was there to begin with. Anissa is indeed faster than Omni Man, and this is stated in Season 2 as well. So if Mark can keep up with someone faster than his father, whom he struggled to keep up with previously, that would likely mean that Mark only matches or surpasses his father after he fights Conquest a second time, and after he gets another power boost from his near death at the hands of Thrag. The writers even infer that Mark was the one who would have won the arm wrestle as well if it wasn't for Anissa. Mark even admitted after the battle.
Yo, the fact that Omni Man is over 1,000 years old, and he would have lost the arm wrestle to Mark, and Mark was less than 30 years old as a Viltrumite is crazy. Like, bro, imagine if Mark gets to Conquest age. Yo, strongest Viltrumite of all time. Straight up, he'll be the strongest of all time. Like every person from Season 1, 2, 3, 4, probably 5, 6, 7, 8, he was solo them easily.
With Conquest, that although that warrior was indeed stronger than him, he had no emotions or intense resolve in his fighting, which is the edge that allowed Mark to take over the battle and come out on top. A similar argument could be made for Omni Man, given that his mentality and control over his emotions changed radically following the end of Season 3. Nolan wouldn't get an adrenaline boost like Mark, of course, but he would still have more to fight for than Conquest, which gives him another advantage. The final nail in the coffin to prove that Omni Man would defeat Conquest even pre-time skip is that Conquest did no heavy damage on Omni Man, and if anything, showed that he couldn't fatally wound him easily like how Thrag instantly did to Thetis and other dudes later on in the story, or like how Omni Man fatally wounded the other Viltrumites in Season 2, implying that there's still a gap that has to be reached, if not surpassed, to be able to do such heavy damage with few strikes. In another example, sure, Immortal could hurt Omni Man with several series of punches and assistance given enough time, and the Guardians' combined efforts did put him into a mini coma. But could he and the others of his tier deal heavy?
Oh my god, bro. Craziest jumping of all time. 3v1 jumping is diabolical, by the way. Like, one of them would have been enough, but three of them, yo, at this point, Alan, bro, it was a miracle that he survived. Because I genuinely thought he died when, I genuinely thought he died. And when the fight ended, and then he was like at the hospital, and then Thetis turned off the light support. I was like, bro, no way Thetis actually killed him.
Damage like break a bone or cut off a limb casually? No. In fact, these characters actually have to outright damage their weaker areas, which is why Immortal goes for Nolan's eyes at the end of Season 1, and Nolan is even forced to use a similar maneuver against Thrag's face because of how much more durable he was than him. And what do you know? Conquest was basically forced to headbutt Omni Man on his nose and did no fatal damage, but he likely could if Nolan just stood there and let him have at it though, obviously. So what this tells me is that sure, obviously Conquest would give pre-time skip Omni Man a difficult fight and hurt him, but Nolan would likely come out on top with mid to high difficulty, especially due to his superior speed. Okay, so now when it comes to time skip Nolan, which is 5 to 6 years after the first Viltrumite War, he actually gains the respect of Thrag and fights far better than he did against him in their first two encounters, despite those being against a weaker Thrag. This is because the Grand Regent must have gotten some type of power boost following his insanely long and severely crippling battle against Battle Beast, in which case Nolan would probably load a mid-div Conquest at this point, especially because Nolan would easily scale above other pure Viltrumites at this point like Krieg and Anissa, who are likely comparable if not stronger than Conquest anyways, especially considering that they were Thrag's most trusted soldiers. Another greatly overlooked point is that Conquest, although immensely strong, is not fighting at full capacity because he doesn't have one of his real hands. And yes, the mechanical fist was very durable, but it'll never replicate the effectiveness a Viltrumite would have with their organic elements. In whichever case, Omni Man, having fought menageries of threats and multitudes of different power sets, especially while restricting himself far more than Conquest would in his encounters, would mean that he would have a greater versatility and would very easily Conquest would in his.
Yo, in this shot right here, bicep 120, hold on, bicep 100%, forearm 0%. Like that's it, like the forearm to bicep ratio is crazy. His bicep tricep big, and then yo, Loki looks like a chicken drum. Loki, a chicken drumstick. That's exactly what it looks like. A chicken drumstick, like a skinny bone over here. Like if someone like gave someone else a fried chicken, but then they just like pushed all the meat like all the way to over here, and then all this is nothing but bone. That's the first thing I thought of, by the way.
His encounters would mean that he would have a greater versatility and would very easily figure out that to drop Conquest, he can make that task easier by crippling his combat effectiveness and break his hand off once more. I would like to mention though, a prime pre-virus Conquest would likely defeat Nolan pre-time skip though, and that is because he would still have his arm, and there is some upscaling you could give Conquest due to his insane survival feats. Keep in mind that even while afflicted with a deadly virus that greatly weakened him, he not only managed to fight several Ragnar by himself, who are deadly to even elite Viltrumites, but he also managed to get out of that situation. For comparison, Nolan and Alan, although they could handle several Ragnar for a bit, admitted they were only doing well because the monsters were still groggy from being frozen.
Yo, genuinely, how did Conquest even escape? Like the Ragnars, they're basically infinite. And then, yo, they were actually cooking Conquest. They took off his arm and everything, and Conquest had the virus. So how? How did Conquest escape? Like genuinely. So at this point, yo, he got a tele. At this point, he just teleported. Like he made a portal like Aestrom, or he just did instant transmission like Goku.
So Conquest might really be him going through that route, and it's respectable that despite how much weaker he became following his recovery, he was still very powerful amongst the Viltrumites. But there's still so much more upscaling and arguments for Omni Man even pre-time skip that it makes the time skip Nolan matchup against Conquest somewhat underwhelming.
Yo, the same bicep to
Time skip
yo over here. Look over here. It's actually proportional, right? It's actually proportional.
that it makes the time skip
Yo, it's the same thing again. I thought it was just like an angle or like this is specific drawing because like the angle or something. But yo, small shoulder, gigantic bicep and tricep, and then arms skinny as shit. Yo, bro, here the proportions make way more sense.
Nolan matchup against Conquest somewhat underwhelming. It's actually pretty funny too that even though Thrag mostly talked and looked down upon Nolan throughout most of the story, he did commend him for his speed and precision in battle, which at the very least should put
Yo, generally, what is it with these Viltrumites and making people donuts? Like it's Eve, like even against Conquest got turned into a strawberry donut. Then Mark and Conquest turned into a blueberry donut. And then now him turned into a cherry donut. A cherry and vanilla donut.
Nolan above Conquest through his own view on the pecking order. So yeah, that's pretty much who I would say would win the battle in either scenario. Omni Man does take it, and he does have varying levels of difficulty, but he does come out the victor nonetheless. What do you think though? Are you not convinced by this outcome? Please let me know in the comments section down below, and thanks so much for watching. Also, please be sure to check out my homie's channel, Roaring Thunder Pursuit. He's been a great friend for several years, and he's a pretty hard worker, whose efforts were especially showcased in his huge project, that is, his Shadow Mewtwo vs. Infinite animation and breakdown, which I think many of you Pokemon and Sonic fans would greatly appreciate.
Yo, should I react to this after Stop Milking Invincible? Because we already know that, yo, as long as Invincible comes out with new episodes, I'll be uploading nothing but Invincible. And I'm making maximum clips and everything just for the views. And also, I actually like Invincible, and I'm actually interested in the video. But mostly I'm chiming in right now because of the views.
Thanks so much for watching once again, and peace out.
Yo, he ends out the outro just like I do. He says peace out. But anyway, make sure you check out Potato Chip right here. Chuck, you feel me? Yo, W video by bro. And anyways, make sure to check out the channel. You know, the main channel, the previous uploads. And this channel, I'll be uploading Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I gotta maximize the Invincible videos. I gotta maximize profits. I gotta maximize the TikTok clips. Hashtag Invincible, hashtag Invincible, hashtag Invincible Season 4, hashtag Conquest. I'm putting all of them. Everything. You feel me? On the main channel, I'll be uploading. Let's see, I'll be uploading every Sunday, as usual. And also, yo, Loki, I'm gonna stop posting art for a little bit. Because, you know, this entire month, I'll take a break away from art. And then after that, like, during May, every first video of the month is gonna be art, and then the rest of it is gonna be other gaming videos. Because it's a gaming channel, not an art channel. But anyways, peace out.